We make 35,000 decisions every day. But do we ever stop and ask ourselves, where does our knowledge end and our imagination begin when making these decisions? Whether it's a decision that affects our personal lives, or our family lives, or our work lives, we think about what we know to imagine options, give ourselves choices. And then we analyze the choices and we decide on the one we like best. Let's look at the transition from what we know to what we imagine to what we decide using this example. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I started my first business as a publisher with 2 partners. We believed we could train young children between the ages of 7 to 14 to become professional writers. It had never been done before. We started our decision-making process with what we knew. We knew that children who wanted to become dancers could go to dance schools. Children who wanted to become artists could go to art schools. Children who wanted to become musicians could take music lessons. Children who wanted to become artists could take art lessons, or actors could take lessons. But what about children who wanted to become writers, like I did? Where could we go? I was 10 when I knew I wanted to be a writer. I submitted my first poem to a Queen's University journal, and it was accepted and published. When I received the magazine with my poem in it and my name on it, it was the affirmation I needed. Years later, looking back at that affirmation, my business partners and I asked these questions. How many other children wanted to become writers, like I did? And was there an appetite in the market? So we designed the Prism Awards program and distributed the call for manuscripts to schools across Canada. We received 10,000 manuscripts. It was unbelievable. Knowing this, we started to imagine what was possible. We imagined that if we gave children the opportunity to source their own original thought, that we could train and mentor them to become professional writers and then publish a select series of books. We then made this business decision. We would design a new publishing model for children's books and open a new niche in the marketplace and publish books written by professionally trained child authors. We ran the Prism Awards in Canada for 12 years. The pinnacle of success for us was when Air Canada purchased 144,000 books. At that time, a bestseller in Canada was 5,000 copies. We had children around the world reading and sharing books written by child authors who were professionally trained. It was beyond what we could have imagined was possible. We can call using our imagination for making decisions many things. In the business world, we call it goal setting, strategic planning, outcomes. In the sports world, we call it projecting, visualizing, mastery goals. In the personal world, we call it dreams, vision boards, aspirations. Over 2,300 years ago, Aristotle introduced the concept of fantasia, what we now call imagination. He believed that our mental images, ideas, and pictures, what he called phantasma, were given to us by a higher source. Science tells us otherwise. It attributes imagination to a mental workspace where a network of brain functions work together. The prefrontal cortex, the neocortex, the thalamus, to power and control abstract thought and imagination? Well, let's forget about philosophy and science for now and look at a new definition of imagination, how it rules our modern decision-making, how it supports fake news, how it expands and contracts progress, and gives us the courage to follow success and purpose or succumb to fear and defeat. Let's say imagination is an extension of our Google search, of all the books, magazines, and news we read, the people we talk to, the experiences we have, podcasts and media we watch and listen to. Let's say our imagination is the extension of all the knowledge we drink in, either conscious or subconscious. And let's acknowledge that much of that information is not curated, yet acts as our knowledge base and has a huge impact on what we believe to be true, what we imagine to be true, and the decisions we make as a result. Pablo Picasso said these words, "Everything you can imagine is real." For me, those words are like savoring a secret sauce. The secret sauce of entrepreneurs, innovators, leaders, disruptors, who imagine a new way to do something, and then they make it real. Consider this. 1.36 million tech startups globally have imagined a new way to do something and decided to make it real. Business leaders are highly experienced at using their imagination to make decisions, to grow their companies. They plan, approve, and make decisions guided by imagined outcomes they want to achieve. This takes courage, confidence, and conviction, and compels people to follow them into the unknown. Let's look at a few ways that leaders and companies use their imagination to make decisions. There's the annual strategic planning cycle. It starts with a series of questions that requires us to use our imagination to answer. Questions like, where do we want to be a year from now? And how are we going to get there? Responses are a combination of assumptions, calculated guesses, presumptions, perceptions, predictions, possibilities, probabilities, and conjecture, all of which we imagine based on what we know. Add to that effective forecasting, where we imagine which predictions are in our favor, which ones will make us happy, which ones will make us unhappy. We make decisions based on these predictions that we have imagined to be true. The problem arises when our predictions aren't accurate and we feel disappointed. Leaders align information with their vision, their mission, their values, and their strategic direction, all of which are the outcomes of an imaginative process, whether it's a 10-year goal or a quarterly goal. Each goal is an aspirational decision that companies and their leaders commit to achieving, and then set in motion key performance indicators that they also make up. It's extraordinary. Yes, we need to evaluate the verifiable and the quantifiable facts. And then we need to use our imagination to decide on how it could be different. That's the genesis of progress and change. Bringing an idea to life making something from nothing, taking something that is imagined and making it into something that is real. Maxwell Maltz said, and it got me thinking when I saw this, we act or fail to act, not because of will, but because of imagination. It made me realize that imagination is the how. Why? Because we need to imagine how to execute an idea, how to follow through, how to make it real. We're privileged to live in a time of open source technologies. We can take our global knowledge and integrate it with our global imagination to create shared global progress. Open source gives us the opportunity to experiment with the how. We can follow through and taste test an idea we imagined, or modify a fix we imagined, or iterate a new way to do something. It exponentially levels the playing field for digital growth. Right now, collaborative operating models with open innovation are outpacing traditional research and development models worldwide. This excites me. So as a serial entrepreneur, I couldn't hold back my imagination. The secret sauce was flowing. My business partner and I waded in with our latest digital venture, Spoonful, a streaming service with bite-sized learning. Let me walk you through what we knew, what we imagined, and what we decided. Here's what we knew. We knew that time and attention were the greatest commodity. The average attention span is 8 seconds. We knew that our clients with robotics in their factories were operating in microseconds. So for them, micro-learning on demand was not a luxury, it was a necessity. We knew that soft skills were in demand around the world, and that people were mentally and emotionally and some physically exhausted from the pandemic, yet still wanted to learn and grow. That was where our knowledge ended and our imagination began. We imagined taking our 3-hour courses that were designed as transformational learning and turning them into 2.5-minute videos and giving people one skill at a time that they could learn right away and apply. We imagined having a global audience, so the videos needed to be animated and inclusive. We imagined using an open source platform to make it affordable and accessible. We imagined having animation teams around the world and soft skills experts and trainers who would voice and write the scripts. So based on what we knew and what we imagined, this is the decision we made. We would develop a new learning model and make all this possible. We produced 2 beta videos and tested them globally. The results, 80% of those surveyed said they were most likely or likely to subscribe to a streaming service with unlimited views. I still imagine myself wearing this jetpack and seeing people watching spoonfuls on their watches or their cell phones while waiting for the next commuter train. When I was putting this talk together, I started imagining what it would be like if I didn't have the freedom to use my imagination to make decisions. What if I was forced to live locked in the ideas that were imagined by others? And I started to think about how often we do this. How we let others decide for us based on their imagination and how they see the world. I started to realize how invaluable diversity of thought is, and wondered how to unlock imaginations that have been sealed shut through compliance without question or social norms that have been quietly accepted, or cultural behaviors and conformity that are just the way it is. I started to think about Leonardo da Vinci, Maria Tallchief, Viola Desmond, Marie Curie, Nelson Mandela, and so many others who had the courage to imagine and to decide to follow through to change the world. That brought me back to my 10-year-old self, when I knew I wanted to be a writer. And I was free to imagine it was possible. And then I decided to make it real for myself and for others. I'll leave you with this question. How are you choosing to use your imagination to make decisions? Thank you.